Greetings and salutations. So today, we're going to take the first step to talk about how you test a categorical syllogism for validity. Recall my Padawan's validity. If the premises were true, the conclusion would invariably be true as well. The conclusion, in short, could not possibly be false. Soundness. We know the premises to be true, and so we know the conclusion to be true. We don't have a test for soundness. If you want to test a deductive argument for soundness, you have to go out in the world and do empirical research. But we do have a mechanism, a procedure for testing a categorical syllogism for validity. What is a categorical syllogism? What's a syllogism in general? A three-line deductive argument, two premises, one conclusion. That's a syllogism. There are all manner of syllogisms. Hypothetical syllogisms, there are statistical syllogisms. We're worried about categorical syllogisms. What's a categorical syllogism? A deductive argument based on the logic surrounding classes of things, right? So let's take this sample syllogism. This one comes from Aristotle. All persons are mortals. All things identical with Socrates are persons. All things identical with Socrates are mortals. Now, Professor Lunas, why did you make this so awkward with the phrase things identical with Socrates? Well, you notice, my Padawans, Socrates is an individual. We must make Socrates a class in order to incorporate Socrates or any individual into our categorical logic scheme. So the way to do that is to make Socrates a class unto himself with containing, that is, exactly one member. And the way to do that, things identical with Socrates, right? Now, there are parts of the categorical syllogism that we have to talk about. The term, right? Notice there are exactly three terms in categorical logic. Each appears twice. The term that appears in both the premises, but not at all in the conclusion, right? That's what this symbol means. Therefore, this is the conclusion. The term that appears in both the premises, but not at all in the conclusions, or in the conclusion, is persons. That's our middle term. The middle term is extremely important to know. The term that appears as the conclusion, as the predicate term of your conclusion is the major term. The term that appears as the subject term of your conclusion is the minor term. You don't have to worry about minor and major term, but what is extremely important is knowing how to find the middle term. It's the one, again, that appears in both premises. All right, let's talk about mood. What is mood? When you look at this syllogism, you notice all our claims begin with A, with all. That means these are all A claims. Mood refers to the kind of sentence types that make up your categorical syllogism. So for our purposes, our mood would be triple A, because all our claims, both our premises and our conclusion, all A claims. Figure. What is figure? Figure pertains to the location of the middle term in your premises. And obviously your middle term is going to be in the premises. We look at premise 1, it's in the subject position. We look at premise 2, it's in the predicate position. We have four figures. Subject in the first premise, predicate in the second. That gives us a figure of 1 for this syllogism. Form is mood, figure combined. Our form for this syllogism is AAA 1. All right, now, briefly, if your middle term appears as the predicate term in both your premises, that's 2. If it appears as the subject term in both your premises, 3. If it appears as the predicate term in premise 1, subject term in premise 2, that's figure 4. All right, now, first rule for testing a categorical syllogism for validity. At least one premise must distribute the middle term. What is distribution? Distribution in a categorical claim means we're attributing a class or a characteristic to every member of a class. So if we take S and P to mean senators and politicians, all senators and politicians, we are attributing the predicate, that is to say, the characteristic of being a politician to all senators. That means in an A claim, the subject term is distributed, right? since we're dealing with all A claims in this syllogism, right, we have to find that our middle term, it must be the case that our middle term is distributed, right? Subject term is distributed in an A claim. Our middle term in this syllogism, the one that appears in both premises, not at all in the conclusion, is persons. Persons appears as the middle term in premise 1. That means, right, there are 5 rules for testing a categorical syllogism for validity. Rule 1, at least one premise must distribute the middle term. We've got all A claims. Subject terms distributed in A claim. Persons is our middle term. It's distributed right here in premise 1. We pass rule 1.